Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nubrates, and in today's video, we are going to be going through, I got this question, I asked you guys, what topics you want me to cover while I'm away on holiday. I'm trying to pre-record some videos, and I got this question from Zachary1. And the question is, how do you manage or prioritize building champions for late game players? I have so many champions waiting to be leveled and built, but I feel like I'm never going to have the time or the gear. And we even got a reply from the Luke234 saying, yeah, it's a bit of a joke. I don't have the gear for all the nukers, and I've been playing for 5 years. I'm an endgame player. So let's talk about this here today. This is obviously much more focused on endgame and late game, but it will still be somewhat relevant to early and mid game players at the very least for having an idea of what's coming in the future, right? So let's dive into it. One of the first things, the first fundamental thing I would say is all the champions are not that important. I would say this is what I would call like a 90-10 rule, where 10% of your champions will take 90% of your attention, and then the other 90% of your champions will only take 10% of your attention. Maybe it's even more extreme than that, okay? But a lot of your champions, like I have so many champions. Most of them I look at barely, if ever, every few months, and that's about it. They're just not too important. So that's a big question. What are the things that are important for endgame? I would say, well, let's talk about stuff that's unimportant. I think unimportant stuff, endgame, the very unimportant stuff is progression content. So this is stuff that was a big focus, for the first year, maybe 2 years of playing the game, but now you've beaten it, you've gotten much further. So basically, faction wars until they release whatever the update for faction wars, but faction wars, Doom Tower, most of Cursed City, Demon Lord clan boss as well. This is content pretty much that is done. It's dusted. It's not really important. And I will have plenty of champions geared up for that, but it might easily be the case that I've got gear on some faction war champions and I've literally not looked at them in 2 years. And it doesn't bother me. It's not really important. I can go back if I've got some time. You're saying, though, you're short on time. But hey, if you've got time or an inclination, you can go back and update them if you so desire. But it's really not important. And you could probably just ignore it forever and be totally fine. That's most of your champions are going to be like that. Now, ones who are actually important, for me, come into 2 different areas. We'll come to the more important ones first, and the more important ones are generally, by the way, PvP champions. So that means the arena modes, so Siege and Arena, and it also means Hydra and Chimera because of Clash. So these are the ones that are the most important because you're up against other players. They are the hardest, so they take the most attention, and they are the most important. The lower priority of your priority champions are important ones. Let me give you an example of a low priority champion. Prepare to be shocked and appalled, but Newt. Newt is a low priority champion. Another example would be Seer. Seer is a low priority champion. Another example, let me give you 3, would be for me, on my account, Kymar. Kymar is an interesting one. Like I could build him as an arena champion. I have him in a very specific build where he's at 250 speed. And that's it. That's literally the only thing that matters. Nothing else is relevant. Why is he there? Specifically and only to reset Newts and Marius and stuff like that. So he needs to be a little bit slower than them, and that's it. Job done. And he's never really used for anything else. Low priority. But these champions, the concept of these is pretty simple. These are champions that you don't actually really care all that much about ascending all their gear. You don't really care about relics. A soul is nice, but certainly not essential. What are these champions? These are your core champions for farming dungeons and stuff like that. So this is, Iron Twins. The potion keeps to probably could be actually considered the unimportant stuff. You just sort of beat them for free end game, which is whatever you've got. Minotaur and whatever event dungeon and just your gear dungeons and stuff like that. These are low priority champions, so they are still a priority. You're gonna make sure they've got good enough gear to do the dungeons in a reasonable time. I'll leave it up to you to decide what a reasonable time is. For me, honestly, for dungeons, it's usually like less than 2 minutes or less than a minute for some of them, something like that. You can obviously improve those. You can make them faster if you want to, but for me, that's very much a luxury thing. And for most of you, you're probably not going to have enough energy where who cares if you can farm the event dungeon in 5 seconds? If you can farm it in 50 seconds, you're probably running out of energy anyway, so who cares, really? It's still really fast. You want these champions to have good enough gear, and when I'm building champions in the optimizer, one of the first things I will do is I'll come in and say, Newt, that gear is locked in. Maybe this Newt's a better example of being more generally built. The Affinity Breaker was like a specific build I put on him. This is maybe just a more general stuff. I put this gear on. In the optimizer, I'm going to click the lock button. I'm going to say, no one can take this gear off of Newt. This gear has vanished. Same with the Seer's gear. Same with Kymar. That gear has vanished down a black hole. I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist because I need those champions to function because I need to farm the dungeons for fusions and tournaments, etc. It needs to happen. They don't need the best gear, but they need to function. That's it. Simple as. And I will revisit these champions once or twice a year, maybe. It's really not a big priority. They're low priority. And I can improve them for fun if I want to, but you could also, again, ignore them for months and it should be totally, totally fine. Like, I'll probably come back to the Newts whenever they release a new dungeon, That's pretty much it, or new difficulties. Yeah, those sorts of champions. Now, the rest are going to be high priority champions. And like I said, this is a very, very small number of your actual total champions. And these are champions that are relevant for Arena and Siege, and for Hydra and Chimera. These are the most important thing. And by the way, this is often, when I do like test server showcases, these are usually the areas I focus on. And when I'm rating champions, sometimes clash a bit with you, on hellhades.com because, I value the end game stuff, right? It's difficult because, not all the users of the website, though, are end game. But I would tend to I tend to be a proponent for valuing, like, Arena more than it is, I think. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. But it's just like an interesting insight into, I think, what is important. Coming back to what you're saying, that you've got so many champions waiting to be leveled and built, but you don't feel like you got the time. Again, one thing you can instantly probably cut that down and not worry so much is, are they going to be? What are they? Are they like a non-priority champion, like just something for faction wars? You really don't need to worry. Like, do it whenever you want. You can never do it, and who cares? Are they low priority? Like, yeah, they'll improve your farming stuff. Then that is actually worth doing at some point for sure. Or are they high priority? Well, is it like you just pulled a Star Sage Galathier? Wow, it's going to revolutionize your arena. In which case, go work on them immediately, essentially. But that's roughly how I look at it. And you can it depends on your account as well. There's no strict rule here. I mean, I think a brilliant example, it was one I was thinking of recently, Tuhanarak, I think came up in a 10x event. Or a 15x event, excuse me. And I was like, yeah, I mean, this is historically a champion that's really considered to be good. But I mean, if I got her on my account, she'd probably be a non-priority. Like, she'd be great for some Curse City, be great for faction wars. Like, I definitely would build her, but she wouldn't be a priority. I wouldn't feel any stress about getting a blessing, a relic, even booking her, is something I do eventually, but I wouldn't be in a massive rush. Maybe, again, to be clear, for your account, if you've got not all the millions of champs I've got, then maybe she would be, etc. Whereas let's say Odin would be a high priority champion for me because he would revolutionize my arena teams particularly. So I think that's a useful way to look at it. Another thing that is very important, to come back to this in gear. I don't have gear for all the nukers. Now, you might be able to you probably do have some gear for all your nukers, but realistically as well, another part of the reason you only have so many high priority champions is you can only get good gear for so many champions, right? And if you improve your gear, you say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to grind, whatever. A few months have passed. I've got more Merciless. I've got more protection. I've got better gear now. Now that your gear level has gone up, a bunch of your gear that is there and equipped and used has now become outdated and it's bad. You can only have a relatively small number of champions in your top level of gear. With nukers, this does mean you're going to diversify a little bit. So with nukers, for example, if we talk about high-end nukers, there's a few fairly typical builds. So a common enough build will be Merciless, like full-on Merciless, which is more so for Hydra Chimera. There are a few niche champions that can use that in arena, like Wukong is a good example. Or Rotus, I've got them in Merciless. And Merciless just takes time. Just time, Curse City hard. Time. That's it. But I've got Thor in Merciless, for instance. I've got Ninja in Merciless. These are like PvE champs. Whereas when we go into Arena, it's much more common that you're going to be in like Lethal plus Stone Skin is a more common nuker build. So just within your nukers themselves, there's going to be a bit of a breakdown. Then you're also going to have, Carnage. He's got to focus on attack and accuracy, whereas Frolny, he wants lots of HP. So again, I can gear both of them actually somewhat well. Their gear will overlap a little bit, but then there will also be some gear piece that like he's going to want a HP percent chest, whereas Carnage is going to want like accuracy or attack percent. They are going to use some different pieces, so you can sort of gear them both a little bit. But you can only ever, I would say, gear so many champions well. For PvE, I did a whole big regearing video week or two ago. I put Ninja in like my top end Merciless damage gear for my account, and I've gone out of my way, obviously, to get him a Cat's Gaze. I went out of my way, went crazy in a tournament to get him a 5-star soul. Why am I doing that? Well, Ninja. Why did I pick Ninja? Ninja is in my Demon Lord team, though that's not really that important. He's in my Hydra team, my best one, and he's been in my best Chimera team, though arguably I could put Marius in instead. But he's in a lot of these top teams. Now, I don't use him in Arena, but he is key for the 2 PvE clashes. So for me, that was a really good investment. I think a versatile champ like that is very high value. I'll give you another example that everyone will eventually get, Marius. Perfect example of that. Now, Marius is not only extremely strong in Hydra and arguably the best for Chimera. He's probably really good for Demon Lord. I assume he'd be insane. I don't know. But he's also incredible for Arena. So he's a brilliant high investment. He is well worth going, okay, this is the champ. Now you've got relics as well. This is the champ for my best relic that I will spend my essence on to get his soul, that I will put in my very best gear. This is the guy because he's going to help me in multiple areas. I say a sort of budget option of that would be Thor, who's a fusion. Thor is like not quite as good as those champs, but again, he can be really good in Arena and in Hydra and Chimera. He's okay, but you could put him in your best gear and the dude's gonna smash everything. You'll smash campaign and Minotaur as well, all the farming stuff. He'll really smash through it. So he could be a really high value one to get some of that top gear. So I think a versatile champion for your best Merciless gear is a good idea. And then you're going to want some nukers in Stone Skin, Lethal sort of builds, typically for Arena. For Arena, your end game, so we're talking like Gold, Live Arena, or late game, so Gold, Live Arena. You're going to want, probably at least 5 nukers in decent gear for Arena, because, the enemy could pick two or 3, and you kind of need to pick 2. So you kind of need at least 5. You might have up to 10 in some semblance of decent gear, but the reality is that, out of even if you've got 10 nukers, it might be that 5 are in actual good gear, and then 5 are in like, I'd really rather not pick them, but they're there for a very niche circumstance, and they're not actually that important. They become a lower priority thing. But yeah, you probably want about 5 good nukers for Arena. Again, you're going to have 3 tag Arena teams, 2 or 3 siege teams. You're going to need a few for Live Arena. So probably about 5 good ones, and then a few backups is okay. And you can really mix and match. So for example, I've got Carnage. He is high attack and accuracy, lethal stone skin. Frolny is high HP, lethal stone skin. I've got Rotus. He's in 9-piece Merciless because his passive keeps him alive. I think another very different example would be Nishak. Actually, not in the... I need to fix his build. He should be really in 4-piece Pinpoint and 4-piece Stone Skin. Odin would be a very different, but it'd be sort of like this. Odin is like a 4-piece Stone Skin, 4-piece Pinpoint, high speed, high accuracy. But with Odin, instead of high attack, you go like 100% crit rate. I don't know, 200% crit damage, something like that. So those are a few examples for your nukers. So that should hopefully give you a bit of an idea for damage dealers. And yeah, that's sort of what's going on there. For your supports, again, you are typically looking at, it's different builds between the two as well. For Hydra and Chimera, it's typically like 9-piece endgame, 9-piece protection, 9-piece feral. Probably the 9-piece new Live Arena set, I can't remember its name, but the Reviver one could be kind of decent for some champs as well. And again, they just take time from endgame modes. For Arena, Supersonic, Stone Skin, Protection can be good too. Speed sets are good as well. That's sort of what you're looking at. I would say for arena, again, you probably want 3 or 4 speed champions. So these are champions that will go fast. And let me show you my arena teams just as an example. Hey, let's do an example. That'll probably help. So these are like my tag arena teams. I'll walk you through my 3. Actually, I've got 4 teams. So I've got number 1, we've got a bomb team, helpfully called Boom in all capitals. So that's just a bomb. You know, if you got a whatever tag arena team that's weak to bombs, great, job done. Easy win. And siege as well. Bombs are incredibly strong. People really underestimate bombs. So yeah, easy win. For high-end players, Marishka is all over the place. It doesn't work. Yeah, my tag team, you can see these are my tag teams. And just to give you a sample size of like, I could probably get away with only using these 12 champions in arena. Like I could just say, these are my 12 arena champs, job done. And I don't need to build another arena champion until I replace them effectively. But like team 1 is, it's Noel plus Sir Nicholas, okay? With an Armans and Marius. So the idea with this team is Armans is the speed threat, speed team. He can lock them out. Lady Noel can start locking them out as well. Marius is for damage. Sir Nicholas does some damage, and like we're unkillable, healing, reviving. So this is probably the worst team, but it's still pretty good. It's fine. It does the job. This team is probably the strongest team. So this team is like double speed boosters with Lazarius and Sifi into a lockout. And then Eilil, pre-buff, by the way. I'm recording this before his buff. He kills everything. And that's sort of simply enough how that team works. So yeah, this is like a double speed booster team. So very different, right? This team, we don't have any speed booster, just Armans starts wrecking people if he takes a turn. Here, we've got the speed boosters that enable Yumiko to take a turn. She's simply not as fast as Armans because she doesn't have a 6-star soul, only a 3-star, and I haven't finished the Faction Guardians. So she's 25 speed slower than my Armans before we even think about putting gear on. So yeah, she's in a speed booster type team. And then the other team is a go second team because I just don't have any speed champions left. You're going to be limited on how many speed champs you can have. So this team is just a bunch of tanky champs. Simple enough. The white duo with an ultimate Death Knight and a Freya. We could obviously build a speed team if we had a good speed aura and Freya. But again, this becomes a thing. You only have so much speed gear. And a slow speed champion is kind of no use at all. So rather than trying to build Freya fast, when I've already put really good speed gear on Sifi and Lazarius and Armans and Yumiko, like, my 5th fastest champion isn't really a fast champion. They're actually a pretty slow champion. So no point in going really fast. So she's like medium fast with stone skin and damage and stuff. Like I've gone in a different direction and we use her in a different type of team. But when we come into live arena, she synergizes great with like Lazarius because he can speed boost into her speed boost, and like they're actually reasonably close together that can work well and be effective, and she can cleanse the nukers and basically turn meter boost to them and stuff like that. So yeah, that's sort of some of the considerations. So there you go. Key things, key takeaways here. Gear for all the nukers. No, you will never have gear for all the nukers. You will also never have gear for all of the supports. Focus in on the most important, okay? You physically cannot gear everyone well. And I think even when you look at like an Uber Kraken and you're like, wow, they've got all these mythicals and all these +4 champs, and God, they've got so many more champs than me. Again, the reality is, for their level of play, they're only going to have so many champions geared as well. More, yes, because they'll be, but even still for a Kraken, a lot of the best gear sets are simply time locked. And I think it's good. You can't buy them. I think there's too many ways to buy power in this game. I'm glad that the best gear sets are generally, like Merciless, Protection, etc. Just more so takes time. So of course, like a Kraken is going to be in a top clan. Usually that's going to be winning stuff, and they'll generate them faster a little bit. It's not an egregious advantage in that sense. Anyway, that's a tangent. It's not important. Yeah, so that's what's going on. You will never have gear for that many, so focus on the most important. Who are, and one little tip I use champion tag. So for arena, I have this many champions and honestly, there's some I don't even use here, but these are broadly speaking my arena champs. And actually, sorry, Aestrid, I switched her gear. She needs to be demoted out of there. So goodbye, Aestrid. It was nice knowing you. You're gone. These are my arena champs. I feel like I've got a lot. But I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20. I've got 22 right now arena champions. So when I'm going into live arena, 95% of the time I'm only picking one of these 22 and just trying to make it work. That's it. I'm trying to make it work with that. Simple as. So yeah, and again, when it comes to focusing relics, then it becomes a lot easier to figure out where the relics are going, who's getting what. And certainly, like, as you can see right now, I'm still at the point where a lot of people just have the rank 3 relic, but it's going to become more of a thing moving forwards of like putting my best relics up first, which again is more consolidating. Yes, consolidating the power into specific champs. So yeah, I think about 20 champions for arena sounds to me about right. Then you want your 3 Hydra teams, you want your Chimera team. They probably overlap, and then by building those teams, you'll have a Demon Lord team. By the way, I this is my favorite because today it was my worst ever Ultra Nightmare run with this team. I love this. This perfectly sums up the low priority thing. This team, 96 million on Nightmare. It's at 878. So it's this exact same team. What's going on? Well, the affinity is different, but the main thing is that the team just doesn't work on Ultra Nightmare properly. It doesn't work. It breaks. Either the speed tune is wrong and someone gets killed, or it doesn't have a shield set, so the shield just gets broken. But it works fine on... It works very well on Nightmare. But here's the thing. I don't care. Because worst case scenario, we are still way above the 1 chest, and I've got the rare champion in there as well. So I'm getting the max rewards. So yeah, do I care about changing my Demon Lord team? No. I mean, at some point, maybe one day, if I've got some time and I feel like doing it for fun, for a bit of nostalgia, I could come in and make this do 800 million damage. But do I care? Is it important? No, it's not. I could ignore this literally forever, and it doesn't matter. Even though it clearly doesn't work right, it doesn't matter. I don't care. So yeah, and like for this specifically, again, Ninja and Mikage, they are Hydra champ, and Chris. Those 3 are Hydra champs. Wixwell is just in whatever gear for whatever. I think he's in 9-piece protection, but like he's just ignored for now on. I don't even remember what this champion's name is, and I don't even remember what gear they have. It doesn't matter. They're literally just there for the advanced quest, and that's it. So there you go. That is my overview of this, guys. If you have like questions, I am well open to questions if there's more stuff for me to break down here. But yeah, that would be sort of my core message. Be like, will this champion go in to my top 20 arena champs? Will they go into a Hydra team? Will they go into Chimera? If yes, then they are the priority. Focus on them and really consider. And this is something to consider as well moving forwards with fusions. When there's a good fusion, if it's a mid-tier fusion, back in the day, I would have said just always do it. But nowadays with souls and relics and all of that, if it's a mid-tier fusion, it's more reasonable than ever to skip it so that you are in a position where when a god-tier relic, we saw that with the Alice event, or when a god-tier soul comes for that champion, you can go and get it. And that's really important. I mean, that's exactly what happened with me for Ninja. I had Ninja for ages. He was actually in my vault. I got Lady Mikage, and I was like, wait, the combo Mikage, he's insane. And then I obviously got the Cat's Gaze for him in the Alice event, and I went crazy in a champion training tournament, spent all my resources to ensure I got his soul. And it was very expensive, but guess what? I knew Ninja was good. I knew he'd carry all of the clan bosses for a very long time, and that's it. Job done. So guys, hopefully that's helpful. Let me know any tips or questions and whatnot. I do hope it helped. Sorry, I went on like a 20-minute rant. Sorry. Yeah, that's about it. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.